So I think one of the gaps that small to mid-cap companies experience right now is that they don't see the return on investment, right? That takes more than just a click to prove to an end user that they're going to have that customer be converted. But what they don't understand is that if you get that right consumer at the right time with that right piece of content, then they can quickly move from the awareness stage to the conversion stage. So it's really taking a step back as a client and saying, what content am I putting out there? Is it resonating with my end user? And am I pushing them through the journey in an appropriate way? Metrics are extremely important when it comes to content marketing. I think, going back to the gaps we were talking about before, I think a lot of small to mid-cap clients just don't understand the metrics behind it. They put content out there that's not measurable and it's not meaningful. And without having a strategy in place like that, then you're set up for failure. So it's always good to have content that's meaningful and that's measurable so that, you can prove the effectiveness of your campaign. I think there's an abundance of content. There's just too much content, right? And the second thing is that it's not meaningful anymore. You have people taking selfies. It's not something that I would put out there as a brand, and I think as a consumer they're demanding more of their content, right? They don't want to open a company page and see a picture of a plant. They want to read articles that are actually going to impact their lives and impact their business. And from a consumer perspective, they want to read content that's actually going to help them make a decision. So I think, kind of the two problems that are out there today for a consumer is that there's too much and it's not meaningful. First and foremost, it's having a sound strategy and working with the right partners to produce that quality content. Anyone can take their phone now and film a video, right? But it goes back to, making sure that what content you're putting out there is representing who you are. It's, putting forth those RTBs, your product features, your product benefits. And it's ultimately, it's brand storytelling. It's making sure that your end users understand what you're putting out there in the atmosphere and that the content that you are putting out there is helping them. I think the difference between brand content and user-generated content is really the insights behind it. So how are how is a brand from a social perspective getting those insights? Well, they're looking what's going on at Twitter. They're getting that, they're getting the voice of the customer. They're getting volume of conversation, and they're taking those real-time insights and they're laying those into what they're putting out on their paid earned, owned, and shared channels. So I think what brands need to do first and foremost is look at insights. So not only insights from your traditional segments, but real-time insights from your social followers and what's going on Twitter, Facebook, etc. And then layering those insights back into your brand strategy. So the difference between the two is that, obviously insights drive your branded content, whereas your user-generated content would be, something that's posted on behalf of your company. Snapchat can be used for a user-generated content campaign because it's small excerpts of video, it's fun, it's engaging, it's highly contextual. But I would not recommend brands use it for their larger brand strategy in terms of content because it really doesn't tell that brand story. I think where brands can play in the space in terms of Meerkat and Periscope is, I guess really from a live streaming perspective. So when we are at South by Southwest, a lot of brands leverage Meerkat and Periscope to do live streaming of, their panelist discussions or their events, which is great for brands because it allows multiple users to promote the brand through shared platforms. Again, but long-term strategy, it would be more of a user-generated campaign. It wouldn't be, something that would be laddering into a larger, broad strategy in terms of content. I think it's detrimental having Meerkat and Periscope out there as kind of a preferred platform because there's just an abundance of content and it's not meaningful content. It's content that is put out into the paid earned, owned, and shared channels, but it really lacks luster. It lacks it lacks what consumers want. And I think if I were a consumer, looking to switch brands, I would want something branded that was, that was meaningful and that was a high quality shoot that was highly contextual, highly engaging, and not something, that was easily just uploaded in the click of a button, because that doesn't provide me with any sort of insight on my brand decision. I would definitely go with mass appeal because we're small, we're dynamic, we work with multiple verticals, and I think where the agency landscape is changing is that big companies don't want to invest $200,000 in a retainer. They want to work with a small company that can provide them with the same services at half the cost. And I think, in terms of expertise, they want a small team that can help them with their day-to-day projects. So I think where we're unique is that, from a content management, content strategy perspective, is that we can work with multiple agencies. We don't need to, we don't have, a team of 100 people working on an account. So we can plug into brands easily, dynamically, and at a cost-effective price. And that's what separates us from the competition. I think being a digital agency is really being dynamic. So keeping up with trends, being well adversed on technology platforms and providing much more than just strategy. Digital means, executing everything from strategy to user experience to creative to development. And as long as you're providing that end-to-end process, then that really encapsulates what a digital offering is. I think they're having trouble keeping up just because they're really not keeping up with trends and they're not adjusting their workforce. So if you look at healthcare, the healthcare industry specifically, I mean, they have been lagging in terms of digital, and now you see, a whole bunch of HCP and DTC initiatives move towards digital. So I think it's really about being nimble, having the right people, and ensure you're keeping up with all the technological trends that are out there. I think where the biggest opportunity is for healthcare providers in the digital space is really on the HCP side. So how are we providing HCPs with a highly digital experience opposed to a traditional flat experience like brochures and fact cards? And how are we taking that information and putting those into digital formats? So how are we giving the HCP the digital formats that they need to have a consultation with their patient on an iPad or on their iPhone or some other digital device that they would typically use flat materials for?